Hey everyone, so you are done with your test and now we're moving into our notes. We're going to finish up 2.4 today, so if you can get your packet with the eagle on the cover and go to page 27, so right there, and we're going to finish it. After the video notes, we're going to move into practice, which is going to review everything from the section, so distance formula, Pythagorean theorem, midpoint, etc. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about finding a point anywhere on a segment, and that's known as the segment ratio. In our last video, we found the midpoint. So for instance, if I was looking at this segment and I wanted to find the midpoint of it, let me extend that segment. What I would have done is, besides in a picture just seeing where the midpoint was, we added our endpoints, these yellow dots, we added them up, and we divided by 2. And that got us our x-coordinate of the midpoint. And then we did the same for our y-coordinates. We add them up and divided by 2, and that got us the y-coordinate of our midpoint. So let's look what happened. What if I don't want it to be in the middle, halfway along the way? What if it's 2/3 or 1/3? So there's a formula. I'll kind of give it to you an idea of how the formula works, but it's a little hard to explain. So let's take another segment. We're going to find the point C so that it lies 2/3, not halfway like the midpoint, of the way from A to B. And then we've got our coordinates. So let's start with A. A is right here at 1, 0. That's our A. And then we got our B. And I want to see where point C is. So it's somewhere in between these 2 points, but it's going to be 2/3 of the way when I start with A and I work my way to the point B. So the first thing I would do is, if it's 2/3, I just better figure out where thirds are. So what I can do is take this length, and I realize that from here to here, it's a length of 6. I can just count those points, but I could also look at their coordinates. And if I subtracted the x coordinates, 7 take away 0, or not 0, 1 is 6. And if I do the same for the y coordinates, 0 take away 0 is 0. And I can see that, for as far as a distance across the way, that it has a distance of 6. Okay? All right, let me erase that there. My pen is definitely acting up. I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix this. I really don't know what the issue is. All right, so once I do that, then I want to take this distance of 6 and break it into thirds. So I can kind of see, if I take 1/3 of 6, that's going to give me 2. And then I can go every 2 spots like I just did above in pink. And every 2 spots, that's 1/3. Another length of 2, that's 1/3. So I've got thirds. And then I could figure out where C would go. And if this is 1/3 from here to here, then this is 2/3 from here to here. This point C is going to go right here, and that would be located at 5, 0. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing, but there's going to be a formula that just gets us there, because not all of our pictures are going to be a nice horizontal line, or if I rotated it, a vertical line. So how do you do that? So regardless of which way your line goes, doesn't matter, goes left to right, up and down, or at a diagonal like an uphill or downhill, you're going to have a starting point, which we're going to call x1, y1. That was like our A. We're going to have an ending point for our segment. That was like the B. We'll call it x2, y2. And then we're going to have a point somewhere in between them that helps us find our segment ratio. So that's why this is called XR, YR, because that's going to be that segment, excuse me, segment ratio point. Somewhere, again, in that yellow highlighted segment area. So how do you do that? Well, it is a point, so you're going to have to do this once for your x coordinate and once for your y coordinate. So we're going to make a formula for both. You'll see that they're actually just the same. So to find the x value of our segment ratio, so again, this is like that point C that I found in the box to the right, what you're going to do is first you would find out how long the segment is. Okay, So what I would do is I would take the endpoint, the one all the way to the right, or whatever we're going to call x2, and I would subtract my x1, and I would get that amount. Once I get that amount, and actually I'm going to rewrite this a little bit, so sorry, that's probably a little bit easier to work with. All right, so I'm going to leave some space. So I'm going to put that over here. x2 subtract x1. Once I know the length of it, so again, in the picture on the right, I knew it was a length of 6. I took that 6 and I took it times a third because I just wanted to see in picture form, how far each third was. It was every 2 spots. This time we're actually going to use the actual fraction they give us. So I'm going to take that fraction amount and I'm going to multiply it. So I'm going to write, it's kind of hard to squeeze that all in there, the fraction amount. And it's going to multiply, that's my multiplication dot, to that x2 minus x1. Once I get that, then I'm going to go back and add to it the starting point, which we're going to call x1. Now, the y coordinate will be the same way, so I'm just going to rewrite it, but with y's. It'll look a little neater here. All right, now that you have that written down, let's redo this problem and use our formula, and you're going to see that we will get the same answer of 5, 0. All right, so starting with A to B. Guess I didn't have to erase everything. Here's my A, here's my B. Since I'm going 2/3 of the way from A to B, A is going to be x1, y1, because that's where I start, and I'm working my way towards B. So B will be x2, y2. And then I'm going to write their numbers below, 1, 0, and 7, 0. And now I'm ready to use my formula. So to use my formula, let's start and find our x-coordinates. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. So to find my segment ratio point, where C ended up, first I take my x1, which is worth 1, plus, and then I'm going to take my fraction. The fraction mentioned in the problem is 2/3. I'm going to make my parentheses, and then in parentheses, I'm going to take x2 and subtract x1. So I will do x2, which is 7, and subtract x1, which is 1. And now I follow my order of operations. Order of operations, I start with parentheses first. That's 6. Then I multiply, which don't be afraid of multiplying fractions. When you multiply fractions, just multiply across. That's 12. Multiply across, that's 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And once I add those up, let me keep this xr going, I'm going to realize that the x-coordinate of where I want to be is 5. Excuse me. And then I do the same for the y-coordinates. So let's try it with the y-coordinates. So to find the y-coordinate of that segment ratio, somewhere on that yellow stretch of highlighted part on the graph, excuse me, I'll switch to a different color, is I start with y1, which is this 0. And I'm going to add to that my fraction, which is still 2/3. And then I'm going to take, let's switch to this color, y2 and subtract y1, which happen to be zeros for both of them. And then I do my order of operations. So I start with the parentheses. 0 take away 0 is 0. Then I multiply. And whenever I multiply with 0, that is 0. And so when I'm done adding them up, my y-coordinate is 0. So the point C that lies 2/3 on the way from A to B lies at the point 5, 0, just like what we got before. So let's try where we don't have a bunch of zeros. Now, the next two examples are phrased differently, but they're going to be doing the exact same thing. Okay? And looking at this, I realize there is a typo, so let's fix that typo first. The typo exists, which way we want to do this? Hold on one second. All right, so the typo is right here. We'll have to fix that. And it's right here where it says 1 to 5. And we're going to change that 5 to a 3. So hopefully, whoops, trying to find a color that works really well. So that is a typo. Sorry about that. All right, so the two ways this could be phrased is, in this example, find the coordinates of point R so that R lies 1/4 of the way from A to B given these coordinates. So notice our fraction is this amount of 1/4. The next example says find the coordinates of R so that our partition, so partitions means it breaks it up, in the segment AB, and that's supposed to say in the ratio of 1 to 3 given the coordinates. When you see something like this, 1 to 3, it doesn't mean 1 out of 3. Something like this might mean there's 1 girl and 3 boys. So there are a total of 4 students. So if I were to ask you and you saw this, what fraction of the group of students are girls, you would say 1 out of 4. If I asked you what fraction of the students are boys, you would say 3 out of 4. So notice I just add those numbers up to make this denominator. So just phrased a little differently, but they will be doing the same thing. All right, so basically, we're going to have a segment. I'm going to erase this here in a moment. We'll have from A to B, and it's going to lie 1/4 of the way. So if that's a half, then those are 4ths. I'm looking to see where this point R is here. All right, let's do it. So you're going to have to do this once for the X coordinate and once for the Y coordinate. And let's determine what's our starting point, our x1, y1, and what's our ending point, x2, y2. So since it says from A to B, A is our starting point, so we'll call that x1 and y1. And since it's going to B, we'll call that x2, y2. And you have the formula. So it says take your starting point. So for the x value, that's -5. Plus, now we need the fraction. We're going to use 1/4. And then in parentheses, I'm going to take my x2 amount and I'm going to subtract my x1 amount. And now I'm just going to do my order of operations. So starting with my parentheses, remember my arm is a subtraction sign, my arm is a negative sign. They swoosh together and make the plus sign. And that's going to give me 12. Then I'm going to multiply. And when I multiply, just multiply the numerators. Multiply the denominators. We can give this 12 a denominator of 1, and that makes 12 over 4, which is 3. And then I can take -5, add 3, and I realize that my x coordinate of where I'm going to end up is a -2. Now, I write really big when I'm writing on my computer, so I'm going to have to go into the other space to find the y coordinate, and then I'm going to erase it all so I can do the next example for you. All right, so let's find the y coordinate. Again, the more you practice this, the more you know the formula. So this time, since I'm finding the y coordinate, I'm going to look for my y1, which is 4. And then I'm going to add to that same fraction. And I'm going to take my y2, which is -4, and subtract my y1. And now I'll do the order of operations. So -4, take away 4 more. Is -8. Then I'm going to multiply my fractions, so multiply across. Multiplying across, I get -8. Multiplying across, I get 4. Divide that, and I get -2. And now to find my y coordinate of where I end up, I take 4, I add that -2, and I end up 2 at the 2. So where's point R located? R is located at an x value of -2, 2. All right, let's try the next one. I'm going to be erasing everything that you see here because I just don't have a lot of room to write when I